Funny thing about sports experts, the louder the confidence, the harder the fall. Because in sports, certainty is dangerous. One bold sentence, one confident prediction, and years later, it comes back to haunt you. Some of these takes sounded smart at the time. Some felt logical. Some were said with absolute conviction, on live TV in front of millions. But history had other plans. Today, we're digging into moments when respected pundits, analysts, and talking heads didn't just get it wrong, they got it spectacularly wrong. And the best part? The receipts still exist. Let's start breaking them down. 10. LeBron James was built for the regular season. For a long time, there was a very popular narrative floating around NBA media circles. LeBron James was great, but only when it didn't matter most. According to some pundits, he was a regular season monster who shrank under playoff pressure. A stat patter, a highlight machine, not a closer. On paper, it sounded convincing. Early playoff exits, a few finals losses, moments where he passed instead of shot. And for critics, that was all the ammunition they needed. One of the loudest versions of this take claimed LeBron was made for the regular season. Exciting, dominant, marketable, but not built to carry teams when championships were on the line. The problem? Reality refused to cooperate. As the years went on, LeBron didn't just silence the criticism, he buried it. He dragged deeply flawed rosters to the NBA Finals. He delivered legendary playoff performances. He came back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals against a 73-win Warriors team, something no one had ever done before. Suddenly, the regular season-only label looked ridiculous. LeBron won Finals MVPs with different teams, in different systems, against different generations of stars. The same player who supposedly couldn't handle playoff pressure became known for controlling entire series, dictating pace, and outthinking opponents on the biggest stage. What made this take age so badly wasn't just LeBron's success, it was how he succeeded. He evolved, he adapted, he became more efficient, more patient, and more ruthless when it mattered most. In hindsight, calling LeBron a regular season-only player feels less like analysis and more like impatience. Critics judged the middle of the story and assumed it was the ending. It wasn't. For 9, boxing pundits said MMA was just a fad. In the early days of the UFC, mixed martial arts didn't look like a global powerhouse. It looked chaotic, brutal, unregulated, and to many traditional boxing voices, it looked temporary. A lot of respected pundits confidently dismissed MMA as a novelty, something too violent, too messy, and too niche to ever last. They believed once the shock value wore off, the sport would disappear. Some even argued it would never be sanctioned properly, never attract real athletes, never appeal to a mainstream audience. And honestly, at the time, that skepticism didn't seem crazy. Early UFC events were raw, rules were minimal, the presentation was rough. Compared to boxing's long history and structure, MMA looked like an experiment waiting to fail. Then everything changed. As the sport cleaned up its image, added regulations, and improved fighter safety, the UFC began to grow. Slowly at first, then explosively. Fighters became specialists, storylines developed, personalities emerged. Before long, MMA wasn't chasing mainstream attention. The mainstream was chasing MMA. Global superstars started appearing. Pay-per-view numbers skyrocketed. Arenas sold out worldwide. MMA fighters became household names. The same pundits who laughed it off were suddenly forced to acknowledge something uncomfortable. They hadn't misunderstood MMA. They'd underestimated its potential. What they saw as barbaric chaos turned into one of the most disciplined technical combat sports on the planet. Calling MMA a fad now feels almost comical. It didn't fade. It replaced the conversation. Number 8, Tony Mandarich, a can't-miss prospect. Every draft has hype, but Tony Mandarich's hype was on another level. Before the 1989 NFL draft, Mandarich wasn't just called a top prospect. He was labeled a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Experts claimed he was the greatest offensive line prospect ever, bigger, stronger, faster than anyone before him. Some analysts spoke about him like he was already a Hall of Famer, before he'd even played a snap. When the Green Bay Packers drafted him, it felt inevitable. This wasn't supposed to be a gamble. This was supposed to be a guarantee, except it wasn't. Once Mandarich reached the NFL, the dominance everyone expected never arrived. He struggled. He looked uncomfortable. He failed to live up to even a fraction of the hype. After 4 underwhelming seasons, the Packers let him go. The most painful part? Players drafted after him included multiple future legends. Suddenly, Mandarich wasn't just a disappointment. He became the benchmark for draft busts. In hindsight, the warning signs were there. The obsession with size and raw power overshadowed the most important question. Can he actually play football at the highest level? The pundits were so caught up in the spectacle that they forgot fundamentals still matter. Mandarich's story remains a cautionary tale, proof that confidence, muscles, and headlines don't win games. Talent still has to translate, and sometimes the loudest hype creates the biggest letdown. Verse 7, Jamie Carragher questioned Erling Haaland's club choice. When Erling Haaland arrived in the Premier League, the hype was massive, but so was the skepticism. Yes, the goals were coming. Yes, the numbers were outrageous. But some pundits weren't convinced it would really work at the very top level. One of the most high-profile doubts came from Jamie Carragher, who openly questioned whether Haaland had even chosen the right club. The argument wasn't that Haaland lacked talent. It was that his style might not be fully maximized in his new system. Too static, too dependent on service, too limited. On the surface, it sounded reasonable. Football debates love nuance, and Carragher framed his doubts as tactical, not personal. Then the season actually happened. What followed was not a debate, it was a demolition. Haaland didn't just score goals, he redefined scoring expectations. Defenders couldn't handle him, goalkeepers couldn't read him. Entire game plans collapsed around stopping him. By the end of the campaign, records had been obliterated. The conversation shifted from, is he overrated, to, how do you even stop this guy? The irony? The exact traits critics questioned, his movement, positioning, and simplicity, were the very reasons he was unstoppable. Haaland didn't need flair. He didn't need complexity. He needed chances. And he punished teams every single time they gave him one. Carragher's doubts weren't malicious, but they became a perfect example of how punditry can overthink greatness. Sometimes a goal machine is just a goal machine. Haaland didn't prove people wrong with words. He did it the only way that matters in football, by scoring relentlessly. Number 6, Claudio Ranieri was the wrong appointment. When Claudio Ranieri was announced as Leicester City's manager, the reaction was underwhelming. Actually, that's being generous. Pundits questioned everything: his recent track record, his age, his relevance. Many believed the club had made a safe, uninspired decision at a time when they needed something bold. One of the most vocal skeptics was Didi Hamann, who openly expressed shock at the appointment. The consensus was clear. Ranieri wasn't the man to turn things around. What no one expected, what no one predicted, was history. That Leicester squad wasn't packed with superstars. They weren't supposed to challenge for the title. They were meant to survive, maybe finish mid-table if things went well. Instead, under Ranieri's calm leadership, something extraordinary happened. They didn't just compete. They didn't just overachieve. They won the Premier League, against every odd, against every expert opinion, against clubs with budgets that dwarfed theirs. Ranieri didn't rely on flashy tactics or bold statements. He trusted his players, simplified the game, and built belief. While pundits dissected formations on TV, Leicester kept winning matches. By the time the title was secured, the earlier criticism looked absurd. What was once called a poor appointment became the greatest managerial decision in Premier League history. This wasn't just a wrong prediction. It was a reminder that football isn't played on paper or pundit panels. Sometimes, the wrong man turns out to be exactly the right one. Number 5, Max Kellerman. Said Tom Brady would fall off a cliff. In 2016, Max Kellerman made one of the boldest declarations in modern sports media. He confidently stated that Tom Brady, at age 39, was about to fall off a cliff. Not decline, not slow down, fall off a cliff. It was delivered with absolute certainty. And to be fair, history seemed to support the logic. Quarterbacks don't last forever. Age always wins, eventually. Except Brady didn't read the script. Instead of collapsing, he went on a second Hall of Fame career. Over the next several years, Brady won more Super Bowls, posted elite numbers, and looked completely unfazed by time. Each championship felt like a direct response to that take. What made Kellerman's prediction so memorable wasn't just that it was wrong, it was how aggressively wrong it became. Every season Brady played at an elite level made the statement age worse. Eventually, even Kellerman had to walk it back. Brady didn't just defy age. He embarrassed the idea that age alone defines decline. This take stands as a warning for every analyst who confuses probability with certainty. In sports, rules exist until generational outliers decide they don't apply. And Tom Brady, he made falling off a cliff look laughable. 4. Max Kellerman. Put Kobe Bryant on the all-decade worst team. Few sports takes have aged as badly, or as loudly, as this one. At one point, Max Kellerman argued that Kobe Bryant belonged on an all-decade worst team. Yes, that Kobe Bryant. The argument wasn't about his legacy. Kellerman claimed he was focusing strictly on efficiency, shot selection, and late career performance. According to him, Kobe was inefficient, ball dominant, and actively hurting his team on offense. On paper, it sounded analytical. In reality, it sounded insane. Kobe was still producing at an elite level when healthy. He was an all-star, a defensive presence, a leader, a player opposing teams feared. Yet somehow, Kellerman decided that none of that mattered. The reaction was immediate. Even Kellerman's co-host couldn't hide her disbelief. The take was so extreme that it felt less like analysis and more like provocation. And that's why it became unforgettable. What made this prediction especially bad wasn't just that it ignored Kobe's accomplishments. It ignored context. Late career Kobe was playing through injuries, carrying rosters with limited talent, and still commanding double teams nightly. Calling him destructive while ignoring his gravity, leadership, and impact was a textbook case of stats without understanding. Over time, the take became less controversial and more comical. As Kobe's career was reevaluated historically, his influence, work ethic, and competitive edge were celebrated even more. The all-decade worst team claim now lives on as one of those moments where hot take culture went too far. Sometimes trying to be bold means abandoning common sense. For 3. Terry Venables. Questioned Lionel Messi's aerial ability criticism is inevitable for great players, but sometimes it backfires instantly. Veteran manager Terry Venables once suggested that Lionel Messi lacked a key attribute compared to Cristiano Ronaldo: aerial ability. Messi was smaller, less physical, not known for headers, and technically, Venables wasn't wrong. But Messi didn't debate it. He responded on the pitch. In the 2009 Champions League final against Manchester United, Messi scored one of the most iconic goals of his career, a towering header over taller defenders. It wasn't just unexpected, it was humiliating for the criticism itself. The moment became symbolic. Messi didn't need to dominate in the air regularly. He only needed to do it once, at the biggest moment, on the biggest stage. Later, Messi would call that header his favorite goal ever, not because of difficulty, but because of timing. Venables' comment wasn't malicious, but it highlighted a common mistake in punditry, focusing on what a player can't do instead of what they consistently do better than anyone else. Messi's greatness was never about physical dominance. It was about intelligence, timing, movement, and precision. And in that moment, he proved that even his supposed weaknesses could become weapons. 2. Skip Bayless. said LeBron was more Robin than Batman. Few critics have built a career questioning greatness quite like Skip Bayless. And when it came to LeBron James, his stance was clear. LeBron had talent, sure, but according to Skip, he lacked the killer instinct. Bayless famously claimed LeBron was more Robin than Batman, implying he needed others to save the day when pressure peaked. Early in LeBron's career, this narrative gained traction. Finals losses, passive moments, the weight of expectations. Skip doubled down, but time has a way of humbling opinions. LeBron went on to win multiple championships with different franchises. He delivered iconic finals performances. He became known not for shrinking under pressure, but for controlling it. The same player once labeled as lacking clutch DNA now owns some of the most decisive playoff moments in NBA history. What made Skip's take so damaging wasn't just that it was wrong. It underestimated LeBron's adaptability. He evolved, he learned, he refined his leadership. 4 championships later, the Robin label collapsed entirely. Bayless didn't just lose the argument, history took it from him. And with one entry left, we're about to reach the prediction that aged worse than all the rest. 1. You can't win anything with kids. In football history, very few pundit quotes have aged as disastrously as this one. In 1995, respected analyst hansen confidently declared that you can't win anything with kids. At the time, it sounded like wisdom. Experience matters. Youth makes mistakes. Big titles require seasoned professionals. The comment came after Manchester United lost their opening match of the season. Their lineup was packed with young, unproven players, and to Hansen, it looked naive, borderline irresponsible. But what Hansen saw as weakness was actually the beginning of something historic. Those kids included names that would soon define an era: Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, Gary Neville, and Nicky Butt. Players who didn't just grow into stars, they became the backbone of one of the greatest teams English football has ever seen. As the season unfolded, United didn't crumble. They didn't fade. They improved. The youngsters adapted quickly, playing with fearlessness, chemistry, and hunger. Match by match, the confidence grew. Results followed. Momentum built. By the end of the season, Manchester United were Premier League champions. Suddenly, Hansen's quote wasn't analysis anymore. It was a punchline. What makes this take so legendary isn't just that it was wrong. It's that it missed the bigger picture entirely. Football isn't only about age. It's about timing, belief, leadership, and giving talent the chance to grow under pressure. Those players didn't win despite being young. They won because they were fearless, adaptable, hungry to prove themselves. Today, you can't win anything with kids is remembered not as insight, but as a warning. A reminder that judging potential too early can make even the smartest voices look short-sighted. It stands as the ultimate example of pundit certainty colliding with football reality. Engaging CTA. And that's the list. Sports history is full of confident voices, bold predictions, and opinions that felt right in the moment, until reality stepped in and rewrote the story. So now it's your turn. Which sports take do you think aged the worst? Drop it in the comments. We're reading them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, share it with a friend who loves sports debates, and subscribe for more stories where history exposes the boldest takes. Because in sports, confidence is temporary, but receipts are forever.